Welcome back to another episode of the Snap Count. I'm Emilio Calderon, and I'm joined by my good friend and usual partner in crime, Caleb Catlin. We have an especially fun episode for everyone this week. We are nearing the end of the NFL regular season, and the playoff picture is becoming a little more, if not very clear at this rate. So we're not going to be talking about the games from this past week. Instead, we are going to be checking in with our crystal balls, and we are going to be talking about the end of the season awards. In case you forget, there's a lot of them, but it's we've got the MVP, Offensive Player of the Year, the Defensive Player of the Year, Offensive and Defensive Rookie of the Year, the Coach of the Year, Executive of the Year, and the Comeback Player of the Year. And at the very end, we've added in our own fun little section, which we don't exactly have a title for, but we will colloquially refer to them as our gold stars, unsung heroes, our guys for this from the season so far. Yeah, the format's gonna be pretty simple. I'm gonna go through every award, and we'll go through who we think will win, who we think should win, honorable mentions, context or lack thereof, all that good stuff. Caleb, I think you're ready, but
Yeah,
good to
definitely.
go. We're just gonna go in order. We're gonna start with the big one, most valuable player of the year. This one feels kind of straightforward to me. At this rate, I think Josh Allen will win, just on the
Okay.
basis of because Buffalo at this rate, Buffalo has a significantly better record. They will likely end the season with only 3 or 4 losses. Lamar Jackson should win this. He really
Oh,
should win this. I
okay.
think so. I
Okay.
just like on a pure like point to point. It's unfortunate because he won last year and he clearly wasn't as good as
This is
he
like
or
this is
really three
bullshit.
other quarterbacks are this year. There are at
Yeah.
least 4 quarterbacks this year who are better than he was, including himself, than he was last year. So I think that's working against him too. But just on a pure number to numbers, like aside from putting it in a vacuum, Josh Allen so far this season, 2,691 yards. He's got a 64.6% completion percentage, 20 passing touchdowns, 5 interceptions. He's also got 334 rushing yards and 6 touchdowns. Lamar Jackson has 3,290 yards, a 67% completion percentage, 29 touchdowns to only 3 interceptions. And on the ground, he's got 678 yards and 3 touchdowns. But unfortunately, the Baltimore Ravens are like the most frustrating team in the league this season.
Yeah.
And
I mean, so I actually kind of line up with your thinking. I think Lamar is definitely the
you think
best
they'll
out of
still give it to
the
him?
like I don't see the thing is I think they're gonna give it to Josh Allen, but
Yeah,
I think on a game to game basis he's been a little up and
he's
down
because he started
sometimes.
the season slowly. Yeah,
And I think the narrative will ultimately like shift towards them. Like, they'll consider like the question marks around the Bills going into the year, the fact that nobody was
hmm
really paying attention to them and how they ended up being so great. Going into this year with all these fresh faces, the unceremonious exit last year. I
hmm
think the Chiefs win will ultimately be how they grade that scale because
hmm
Josh Allen won that and Lamar didn't. I think that'll probably be the
it's true.
the glaring pick there. But like on a just if we're looking at the quarterbacks anyway, I think Lamar is pretty firmly the best quarterback in the league. Yeah, 33,290 yards, 29 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, 67% efficiency, 678 on the ground, and 3 touchdowns there. I think mostly it's just going to be a voter fatigue thing, which is unfortunate because this is definitely his best year. I think he's going to be the front runner every year for the foreseeable future in a way that like
Future.
LeBron was coded in that way where it's like, yeah, like he's clearly the best player in the league, but we're gonna give it to like Steph Curry or James Harden. I think it's gonna be a situation like that where, Josh Allen is effectively acting as like his Kevin Durant equivalent, where it's like, damn, like that's 1A, 1B type of deal. And then there's Mahomes off in his own little section. But yeah, man, his fucking arm's insane. This is the best version of him as a quarterback. Not nearly as
Really.
eager to run, which is what we both complain about him in terms of the postseason. He often quit on plays and run. Now he's like the play against the Eagles last night where he spun out of a defender and kept the play alive and then chucked the shit to I think Zay Flowers.
Zay Flowers on the left sideline.
It,
Yeah.
it's a shame that his best season is probably not going to be rewarded for it. but I think ultimately the narrative is going to favor Josh Allen. So, but to
Because we
throw a
know it is a
curveball,
narrative award. Yeah.
but I didn't put that he should win either,
Mm.
which is a wrinkle that which is you know,
Okay. All right.
I put Josh Allen as that he was gonna win.
Mhm.
I think Saquon should win if we want to be a little bold.
I thought about this. I really wanted to put him here because I
I think
personally,
I think if we think of the value of the award, we think of most
the
valuable.
MVP award, yes.
Saquon has fundamentally altered how the Eagles are operating. This isn't
Yeah.
really a Jalen Hurts business as much as this is a Saquon business at this rate. He's the strongest
Yeah.
reason why they're winning 8 games in a row right now. I think they're going to penalize him a little bit because he's not as prominent as a receiving threat as he was with like the Giants, but amidst the voter fatigue, the lack of narrative for Jared Goff, and just the well-oiled machine that's happening there, That's the fourth guy that I think is going to get slotted at the
Yeah,
end.
that was he was my honorable mention, Jared Goff. He's got 2,982 yards, a 71.8% completion
Yeah,
percentage,
he's
22
nuts.
touchdowns, 9 interceptions, which I think at least 5 of those came in like the first 4 games of the season.
So, like 4 of those came from the Texans game alone.
Yeah.
So really, I
A
don't
game
know
which
how.
they won, lest we forget.
Yeah, I don't know how much you can really knock him there, but
Yeah.
ultimately, I thought with all that and then the up and down nature of the Josh Allen games, I think that Saquon probably should win as a measure of consistency in terms of
He
general value to the Eagles. But I think Josh Allen kind of fits all of that despite the up and down nature. So I think he's probably going to win it anyway.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm glad you brought up Saquon because, like, yeah, he was like, honest to God, the first person I thought of. It's just, it just the MVP is a quarterback award for the foreseeable, like, real foreseeable long future. Um, I will tell you an award that Saquon Barkley will and I think should win is going to be the Offensive Player of the Year, which is,
Yeah.
not a lot of controversy here. It's between him and Derrick Henry, which is I'll just give you the raw numbers and you can riff on him if you want. Saquon's got 1,499 yards,
Mm-hmm.
6.1 yards per attempt,
Yep.
11 touchdowns. Receiving wise, he's got 267 yards, 9.2 yards a catch, and 2 touchdowns. Derrick Henry, which is still also insane. He's got 1,407 yards, 5.9 yards per attempt. He's got 13 touchdowns, but he's got less receiving yards. He's got 125, but he also has 2 touchdowns there. Like, this one's like the most straightforward to me, I think.
Yeah, I think if he got like off to a hotter start at the top of the year, he probably would be
He'd
circling
be
around that personal
he'd be
best
at 16,
2020 year.
almost 17 right now. Yeah.
Yeah, his personal best was 2020, which was that 2,000 yarder with the
Mhm.
17 touchdowns. I think as they close the year against Pittsburgh and Houston and Cleveland, I think he'll probably settle around that like 17-ish range, maybe. But yeah, this Ravens team isn't nearly as good without Henry. Ultimately, I think this is going to be Saquon's sort of consolidation.
They're both
His
equally
consolation
important, I
price.
think.
Um, I wanted to just give a shout out to somebody who's not going to win because their team fucking sucks. But Joe Burrow would probably be MVP right now if
I thought
there
about.
was just a few extra games, just a few. They could have gave him the Russell Westbrook like, oh, you're the 7 seed type of
Yeah.
MVP. They are awful, but his numbers are ridiculous. 3,337 passing yards, 30 touchdowns, 5 picks, 107.4 QBR. If he hits around 250 yards per game, he'll only be 24 yards off from his career best, which is definitely feasible considering that they went into a shootout with Pittsburgh this last week,
Of all teams.
which arguably the best defense in the league. Again, if Zach Taylor wasn't a bum, if
Oh,
that
man.
defense wasn't a nightmare, they'd be giving Baltimore a run for their money in the wild card.
I love that even in our award season show, you still got the Zach Taylor straight in there. He
Oh,
deserves
dude,
a great place. So.
if we had room for worst of the year, it would be like
Oh, no, I don't want to go.
it would be a
we're,
three-headed race between Zach Taylor, Deshaun Watson, and Aaron Rodgers.
Oh, I was trying to keep it positive here. We're live, laugh, loving over here, okay? But yeah, this I do understand. Yeah, offensive player of the year, pretty straightforward. This one is going to be straightforward. I don't think it should be. I'm talking about defensive player of the year. Yeah, you know, it's going to be T.J. Watt.
Yep.
He's got 43
40.
tackles. He's got 9.5 sacks, 35 pressures, and he's got 4 turnovers, or 4 turnovers
Forced
caused by
fumbles.
pressure. It's funny because the underrated thing, or the thing that has not been talked about because it's not sexy to talk about, is his pass rushing has just been very good, or honestly, for his standard, just good. It's his run defense. He's been really great with this season. The Steelers' run defense has been great. They're fourth in rushing yards allowed per game. They have an 18.8% stuff rate. That's also top five. Um, it's funny to give the award to a guy, and it's kind of unsexy.
Yeah,
But
no,
also, I feel like
I
he's
think
been
we
part
all
of this thing with Miles Garrett for 3 seasons running now.
yeah.
That
I think we all knew who this award was supposed to go to before he went down for the year. Aiden Hutchinson was definitely like slated.
oh yeah, absolutely.
He was printed for that one, but he went down. What's funny is that Max Crosby has a pretty comparable year. It's just that the
But like
Raiders.
Joe Burrow, he's on a
Yeah,
terrible team.
it's like bad team and the defense is a much better, but he has 43 tackles, 27 solo, 7.5 sacks, but the defense just is terrible.
Defense is
I
atrocious.
I thought about this morning as like a raw
Okay,
thought, but I
do you have? So
did I have
do you
like
think he should win? I want to ask you.
TJ Watt? Yeah, probably. Yeah, he should and he will just because the lack of options here. Now, if I wanted to throw like a flyer option out there, I was curious about Patrick Surtain in a vacuum.
I'm putting TJ Watt third because I have 2 guys ahead of him.
Okay.
The second is Chris Jones, who I think
Okay.
kind of like a lot of other guys,
I
we have
feel
just taken his greatness for granted. I think this is legitimately like the second best season of his career so far. Like it's not showing up in the numbers. But if you
yeah.
watch this Kansas City defense, he is blowing up lines by himself. Like he's getting doubled, sometimes tripled, and he's still blowing up lines. He's
Yeah,
still got again being
the
doubled on more than half of his snaps.
the
30
thing that
tackles, 3 sacks, 43 pressures, and the Chiefs are actually above the Steelers in rushing yards allowed per game. And
yeah,
it's
the thing
mostly him, I would like to point out.
yeah. No, see I agree, but I also think that because it doesn't like show up obviously in the stat sheet. I think ultimately giving it to Chris Jones is going to feel like giving him like a lifetime achievement award.
That's
Like
fair.
that's kind of what it'll feel like, at least with TJ Watt, like even though he's not like blowing minds and he probably shouldn't have won if Aiden Hutchinson was still around,
Mhm.
at least it still consistently shows up like the eye test and the numbers back up what he brings to the table. Whereas Chris Jones, you got to do a little more digging. Patrick Surtain, who was somebody I thought
Number one for me is I would vote for Patrick Surtain.
does not show up in the numbers, but like he is essential to how that secondary
He's
operates.
only allowed 21 catches for 182 yards all
Yeah,
season. He's
that's
allowed 1 touchdown, but he's got 3 picks. He's allowed a 47.6% passer rating. And obviously he's doing this as the CB1 of a team that is second in points allowed and third in yards allowed. Like
yeah.
this defense is really good, but him alone, like I
I
can't remember like the last
if
corner it was like this.
if the media didn't have such a large lust for edge
For
rushers,
pass rushing. Yeah.
I would assume that Patrick Surtain would get more love. And I put him in like asterisks, like maybe I think he probably should, but mostly I just left that award to T.J. Watt, to be honest.
Yeah, no, it's fair because this is how the award. It's like how the MVP is a quarterback award now. Like it would take like really bad quarterback play from the entire league for it not to be.
Yeah, and at least with Saquon, like I could look at the numbers, whereas like with Patrick Surtain, you
Mhm.
really got to like dig and look at the context around it and be like, wow, like he's the anchor of this going on. Whereas like in a
Yeah,
nutshell, if I look this up on ESPN, they're gonna be like, the fuck has he been doing all year? Like
Yeah.
that, that I don't know. It
Yeah,
fits.
there's no news articles on offensive linemen or cornerbacks unless they're playing poorly. Yeah. Yeah. I do. Obviously, none of these guys are going to win, but just honorable mentions for guys who are really having stellar years. Before Dexter Lawrence got shut down for the season, he had 9 sacks from nose tackle, which is insane. Also on that Broncos defense, though, Nick Bonito's got 10 sacks. Like,
that
like it's funny we have a guy in double digit sacks and where no one is talking about him. It's because
Yeah,
he plays
I'm
for the
not gonna
Broncos,
lie.
but
That name like kind of bashed me over the head. I was like, "Who the fuck is that?"
exactly. It's nothing wrong with that because like I didn't know who Nick Bonito was until like last year. But in Green Bay, guy I've shouted out a few times, Xavier McKinney. He's got 7 INTs from
He's great.
safety, which is crazy. He's really been anchoring that defense. And then 2 pairs from 2 different teams. The guys in Houston, Will Anderson and Daniil Hunter, who are
Yeah,
the best pass rushing duo in the league.
that's that's the only reason I didn't mention Will Anderson was because I think him being paired with Daniil Hunter is going to wear him down a little bit, even though he's
Yeah.
having a great individual season.
And then even in that pair, you could go the nerd route and say Daniil Hunter is more important because he's gotten more pressures. It's kind of like the sexy pick versus the right pick, whatever, however you want to spin that. And then in Detroit, another secondary shout out. You got Kirby Joseph and Brian Branch, but same thing. It's like 2 guys, but 2 elite guys who are elevating each
Yep,
other and their defenses.
I will be getting to that.
All right, moving on to offensive rookie of the year. Um,
Yeah,
you have an answer for this?
I think we have a pretty obvious will and should, though I do have a number of names that I'll, that
Oh,
I
oh, oh! Is it obvious? I didn't write down the numbers, but it's very clear. Will win will come down to whoever finishes the season stronger between Jaden Daniels and Bo Nix.
I
Should
think
win, should win is Brock Bowers. It is 100% Brock Bowers. No,
okay,
I'm not even trying to be funny. Like even more than Pat Surtain for Defensive Player of the Year, Brock Bowers should absolutely be winning
just like if he
offensive
had
rookie.
a
He's the
QB,
best tight end in the league. He's a rookie. Like
yeah,
that is
yeah,
insane.
he's the best tight end in the league with no quarterback.
With no quarterback.
He's been catching
He's
these balls.
caught.
Like, imagine if he gets a quarterback, just a decent one.
He's got 84 catches, 884 yards, 4 touchdowns, 456 yards after the catch. He's only behind Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, and Terry McLaurin. Like that.
He's absolutely getting 1,000, if not more, by the end of the year.
Absolutely. On short passes, he's got 72 catches for 589 yards, 375 yards after the catch.
So ultimately, I just went over the Jaden Daniels and Bo Nix exercise. To be honest,
Yeah.
I think for Bo Nix, he's going to have some very staunch defenders just because of the consistency that he's operated with.
Mhm.
Um, Jaden Daniels has been a lot of
This is a
flash,
big narrative
a
thing.
lot of big surprise. They're currently going through a rough patch, though I don't really
Mhm.
count that Titans game as anything to write home about.
Yeah.
Um, I love that they have such potential over in Washington, and it's because of how great Jane Daniels has been. And
I think this is a funny
His
narrative.
connection with Terry McLaurin is among the better QB wide receiver duos in the league.
Mhm.
However, with Bo Nix, really it's just been a measure of
Mhm.
really good and okay, and the levels in which he dips down isn't drastic enough. I get it, but you're going to catch me dead before I advocate for someone who runs the SEC grind to do cute shit
I,
in Oregon. I can't do
uh,
it to you.
of the two, I think Jaden Daniels should win, but I do think narrative will play in here. That's why I think the finish will be so important to both these teams. They are in the playoff hunt, obviously, but also because Jaden Daniels started so hot and then his cool down versus Bo Nix starting, like
Because
historically cold. But he
yeah,
has been good, and so like regardless, like even with how bad the start was, he has gotten drastically better. So it's really a matter of what voters care for more.
I did write down a bunch of offensive rookies that I think should get
I've got
some
3. Yeah,
love deeper in the rankings.
I think we've got 2 of the same guys.
Wanted to shout out Brian Thomas Jr. The Jaguars
Oh,
suck, but he doesn't. 46 receptions on 73 targets, 765 yards, 6 touchdowns. Let's go ahead and free him already. Um, Keon Coleman has carried the load and is arguably WR1 despite Amari Cooper's insertion into the lineup. I'm not sure, but there's a ton of promise there. His numbers doesn't immediately leap off the screen, but he's been really good. Um, Big shout out to these two running backs. Fucking love Bucky Irving. To think I had to endure Rashad White seasons before this. Bucky Irving has brought the rush back in Tampa
He's
Bay.
so good that Rashad White is also good now.
Right. So
Actually,
100,
I don't
130.
mean that as a backhanded compliment. Like sincerely, like Rashad White also has looked good this season because there's another
He's
guy in the
he's
room.
been he's been all right. I'll say that. 132 runs, 732 yards, and 6 touchdowns. I don't know if Bucky Irving is going to be like some amazing star running back or anything, especially when he plays really bad against decent defenses. But for a rookie to fundamentally alter how I look at a team's run game, that's really strong shit to me. Um, and then Tyrone Tracy Jr., one of the few bright spots in New York for the Giants. There's something special there, especially because he's had these huge games against strong defenses like the Seahawks, 18 for 129 in that game, and then against the fucking Steelers, 20 for 145 that game. He's not scared of these elite defenses, which gives a lot of promise to a very anemic Giants team.
Tracy is definitely like the numbers don't really matter. It's more like the vibes. Like if you watch the guy play running backs, you're like, yeah, that's a starting running back in this league, man.
The thing is, like, his numbers do mostly like add up. Like, he didn't really get worked into the lineup initially, so of course he
Until
was slow
halfway through the
there. But
season. Yeah.
like when he started like gradually picking up, I was like, oh, he's averaging about 5 yards a carry every game, which is anything you could add, which is the best you could ask for from a random running back that you picked up out of your room.
I'm surprised you didn't mention our favorite country boy, uh,
Oh,
one
and then Lad
powder blue star, Mr. Lad McConkey.
Yeah, we went to Brock Bowers and I ended up skipping through him, but Lad McConkey, yeah, that's that boy. He's gonna be
he
the best second option in the league for a while. 58 receptions and 815 yards, 4 touchdowns. That's nuts. When
on this
all
Chargers team. On this Chargers team.
when everything else failed on offense for them, he was always there. Quentin Johnston has lost his WR1 privileges. It belongs to
Man,
Lad McConkey.
defensive rookie of the year. This is by far even more than offensive player of the
Yeah,
year. This is the easiest
gross.
award. It's
Oh,
Jared
okay.
Verse. It's
Yeah,
Jared
yeah.
Verse, isn't it?
Yeah, I just put should with a question mark because I was like, I don't really feel great about any of these. The thing is I put a question mark on Quinyon Mitchell because I think he's getting a lot of media
Yeah,
love.
I think he's the number two, but
He's getting
Jared
a
Verse
lot.
do this as a rookie.
Yeah, no, they
He's
put
got
a lot.
54 tackles, 4.5 sacks, 58 pressures, and 18.9% pressure rate as a rookie. Just
Yeah,
crazy work.
they threw this on him after Aaron Donald retired. They were like, we need somebody to fill this role, and they were like, fuck it, we're gonna chuck it on him.
Like
He's been fucking
if he had half these numbers, I would still consider this a success, like a really great success for a rookie. But
yeah,
damn.
yeah.
But to your
I
point,
think
yeah,
I think the
Quinyon Mitchell would have been
strongest.
number two.
Yeah, and the thing is it'll probably end up subverting the media's love for those edge rushers, which is the reason why I put Jared Verse with a question mark. But because you have these stats that don't leap off the page, but he has 10 pass deflections. A lot of
Hmm.
QBs don't really throw to him
Yeah,
because of that reason. He's having good games against great receivers like Mike Evans. Jamar Chase had a quiet game with him on him. I think it's not out of the realm of possibility. I think ultimately they're going to give it to another edge rusher. Um, I was only
if
curious
they finish
because
really
Jared
strong.
Verse only had four. Jared Verse would have to finish pretty strong with the sack numbers for them to really feel like okay, like he's got it. 4.5 sacks so far. If he stays at that number, I think they're going to be like, I don't know. We're going to give it to the guy in Philly.
The Eagles are 10-2 now. So
Mhm.
yeah, like okay, actually, you're convincing me a little that if they finish the season with 13 or even 14 wins, then
I just think the
sure,
narrative
Quinyon
fits him.
Mitchell.
I think
Okay.
you're really you're weighing the narrative of like best corner is a rookie in Philadelphia versus like the great numbers on a lesser defense in LA. I think I don't know. You'd have to take the consistency of edge rush voting versus like media narrative with Mitchell. So that's where I was at. It was between those two. I did shout out Byron Murphy the second in Seattle. Uh,
E-
that boy, nice. He's that interior has opened up a lot of stuff for guys like Leonard Williams to thrive. Um, and then didn't really get to write a ton about these guys, but just general shout outs to Terry and Arnold. Great complimentary piece to that great line secondary. Coop DeJean, the number two corner
mhm.
for Quinyon Mitchell. Wanted to shout out Kamari Laster, especially for that great game in Detroit. And then shout out to Cam Hart in Los Angeles.
Yeah, that's. I think underrated thing with the Quinyon Mitchell campaign is that I think Cooper DeJean has not been as good, but Cooper DeJean is also playing kind of like nickel. He's playing like kind of safety. Like they're asking Cooper DeJean to do different things,
Yeah.
and that has allowed Quinyon Mitchell to thrive solely as an outside corner. Um, you could argue the same thing for Braden Fisk playing D tackle for in Los Angeles, but I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I think Jared versus I don't know. The impact is kind of undeniable. I will say I'm surprised you didn't mention them. Well, like two other edge rushers who numbers don't jump off the page, but two guys who have been really good in their settings. Liatu Latu in Indianapolis. Considering that
Mm-hmm.
defense is really weird. They're like good, not
It,
great, but they're good. Like,
it's
why do they get like 100 tackles a game?
yeah, you're getting the real Colts
Really weird.
experience. I watched those games and I'm like, wow, this
It's a really
offense,
strange team.
this offense is weird. Worst quarterback in the league, but also those receivers are awesome. The defense is strange, but they tackle every living thing. I don't get it, but you see why I penciled them in as like a wild card threat.
And then in Miami, a guy who started the season quietly and he's gotten really good the past calendar month is Chop Robinson. I think is really good, and
I
I think
haven't
he'll be very good in next season, starting a full season.
Yeah, I haven't seen enough Miami games this year for me to really speak confidently about Chop Robinson one way or the other.
I think he's been really good playing off like Zach Sealer, who's also quietly having a really good year. Just Miami's had a really weird season, playing so poorly to begin it. Now they're out of the playoff race. But all right, this one is coach of the year is kind of funny to me. I
Okay,
think it's
so
pretty clear cut, but I've got a few
there's
honorable mentions.
there's a bunch of names, but there's one
There's one
answer.
guy.
Yeah, so we
It's
both
Dan Campbell? Question mark?
yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
because
so
if the Lions are going to finish with at least 14 wins, it's like so you're
he
gonna have to
def-
give it to him.
he definitely benefits from like the best coaching staff maybe in the league.
Yeah, arguably.
The great schematics with Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn ultimately doesn't matter because people buy into Dan Campbell. They're only going to respond to those schematics with Ben Johnson if
But in
somebody.
really black and white terms, like this is also his team, really. Like him just like, as far as we know the politics of the Detroit Lions, like both of them stayed, Johnson and Glenn, I mean, because they wanted to continue working with Campbell and this team. So,
Yeah,
like even ignoring the stuff on the field, like just like I don't know, man. Guy it's one it's for me it's as simple as they're the best team in the league. These guys wanted to stay that badly. It's like, yeah, I don't know. What else do you want from me?
there's a bunch of fucking honorable mentions though.
Yeah, I've
Uh,
got four. I
I've
mean,
got
Andy Reid just
two,
because
three, four,
they've only got
five.
one loss.
I've got seven.
Seven. Just what the you giving
There's
up
a bunch.
participation trophies? Like I
There's
get
a
it, but okay,
there's a
okay,
bunch.
fine. I'll start with mine. Well,
I
Andy
didn't.
Reid is just like
I didn't
easy. I
really.
didn't even write him down, but they've only got one loss, so he's got to be in there.
I wrote him in, though he won't win. Same thing with Mike Tomlin. Great coach, but he's
Mike,
not
I had
going
Mike Tomlin, Jim Harbaugh, and Dan Quinn. Those were my three.
to. Okay, so I shouted out Matt Lafleur. I
Yeah,
think
Matt Lafleur.
I think if the Packers were first in the
Matt, Matt,
division, I think he would run away with it.
Matt LaFleur. If they, I mean, yeah, of
If he was,
course.
yeah, if the Lions didn't have such like a transformative year, I think this was Matt Lafleur's to lose. To be honest, especially when you consider the nasty ass play calling that he was doing with Malik Willis to slide in for those Jordan Love games. I think any other year I would very strongly petition for Matt LaFleur to win this award, but it's Dan Campbell's.
Yeah.
And then the other ones,
No,
I think
who are the other ones?
Kevin O'Connell has landed Sam Darnold a pretty healthy contract this offseason, and a lot of it can be credited to his play calling. The last thing we both expected of them was for them to be any good this year, especially in the best division in football. So I think Kevin O'Connell deserves a mention there. I think Sean Payton really deserves a mention there.
Mhm. Oh
Those
yeah.
um, wanted to shout out Sean McDermott, who I thought lost the locker room last year with his insane motivational bullshit. But those boys are cooking. Um, and then I think if we're talking like the expectation, like, oh, he came in and his coaching like really brought up things a lot. Wanted to shout out Dan Quinn for elevating that very raw Washington defense. And the injury bug ended up hitting them in the end, but he's taking a lot of rookies and turning them into a pretty solid defense. Um, Ultimately, if I was ordering it, it would be Dan Campbell, Matt LaFleur, Sean Payton, Kevin O'Connell.
I think the only thing working against Lafleur is like in your hypothetical, you can't put the other guy even in the top three because I think it's got to be Campbell or Lafleur because it would have been whoever is the best team in the league, frankly, because that's how the expectation works. Like we already thought they would be very good teams, but the Lions have elevated to the team in the league
Yeah,
versus like Sean Payton or O'Connell or Harbaugh or Quinn, who are working with much lower expectations and now have playoff like aspirations. Yeah, it's fine. Dan Campbell's gonna win. It's fine. It's good. Give it to him. Don't let's not argue about this. Executive of the year. This one is
so
like a little funny to me.
I did a lot of research for this. I did a lot of
I'll,
research for this.
it's a little straight. It's pretty straightforward for me. I
Okay.
kind of think Brad Holmes will win. I don't
Oh
think
yeah.
he should, but I think he will win. So I broke this down.
Okay.
Signed this off, like obviously we're just talking about this year. So this offseason, he signed Carlton Davis, Amik Robertson, DJ Reader, and Jake Bates. And in the
Mhm.
draft, they got Terrion Arnold and Makai Wingo. Terrion Arnold has played 91% of his possible snaps, and Makai Wingo, who they drafted in the sixth round, he's still playing 25% of snaps at D tackle, which is really great. And
It
then they
sucks.
also extended Alim McNeil and David Montgomery this year. I mean,
It sucks that Micaiah Wingo's hurt for the rest of the year, but he
yeah,
was pretty
he was
fundamental for
really
them.
great.
Shout out Ennis Rakestraw as well. They signed Kevin Zietler, Graham
Yeah,
Glasgow.
they signed. Yeah, that was the guy I forgot.
Marcus Davenport didn't get to play a whole bunch because he got hurt, but he was another one that was supposed to be good for that edge rush. And then, of course, they signed Jake Bates out of nowhere, who's been massive for them. Traded for Carlton Davis, like you said, and then traded for Zadarius Smith. I also
Yeah,
include some pretty key extensions. They extended Penei Sewell and
in the
And
beginning of the
Amon
year.
Ra. This feels like a Lions cleanup year in terms of like organizational awards, but they addressed the needs in the secondary, assured that the defensive line would be concrete, great signings, good culture fit. I think he's pretty obviously gonna win. I think if we're talking about like transformative
See,
good wins, I have a pretty left field answer. uh,
okay. Well, Dan Campbell should, and I think he will and should win Coach of the Year. Exactly. I think it should be Adam Peters in Washington.
ooh, okay.
I think it should be only because the expectations were so low. We like unanimously they were viewed as one of the five worst teams in the league.
Yeah.
And I mean, signings like they signed an entire fucking team, man. Zach Ertz, Noah Brown, Austin Eckler, Bobby Wagner, Frankie Louvu, Jeremy Chin, Noah Igbeniki, Durant Armstrong, Dante Fowler Jr. All of these defensive guys have played more than 50% of snaps. And obviously in the draft too, I think is what puts it over for me. They hit on Jaden Daniels, Trizan Newton, Mike Sanderstill, Brandon Coleman at tackle has been one of the best rookie linemen in the league. And he hasn't played a lot, but I'm going to include Luke McCaffrey just because I think he has looked good when he's
Okay.
gotten opportunities. But yeah, I think I'm just impressed because we were kind of okay with Washington being a 2 to 3 year project, and now kind of like Houston, they're a thing now. Like they still have work to do, but they've gone from project to a team in the midst of it.
So in that vein, I thought that the Vikings GM Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah
Adolfo
should win.
Mensa.
Um, the draft was
Interesting.
fine. They brought in Dallas Turner, and then
That
JJ
was
McCarthy got hurt before he could really take off. But he sealed the Justin Jefferson extension, and his signings were fantastic. Brought in Sam Darnold, brought in Aaron Jones, brought in Jonathan Grenard and Andrew Van Ginkel. Brought in Jonathan
mm,
Bullard and Blake Cashman, who have been essential on that defense. And then signed Shaq Griffin and Stephon Gilmore, who are pretty
mm.
solid for that secondary. If we're talking about just roster overhaul and understanding the fit and culture, I think Mensa killed it, man. Completely
I
shifted.
had him in my honorable mentions. No, I get this. Yeah.
We completely shifted expectations, and now it has us wondering if they should even like allow JJ McCarthy to continue his red carpet. Like it has me particularly petitioning for Joe Burrow to get the fuck out of there. But there's that. And then I mentioned two pretty obvious guys. One of them was mostly just out of like just little things, like tightening the ship, and then still ending up with a great roster. Even wanted to shout out Brandon Bean over in Buffalo.
Yeah, I had Brandon Bean for a
A lot,
second.
a lot of addition by subtraction is what I
Hmm.
wanted to shout him out for. Traded Stephon Diggs, traded for Amari Cooper midseason for basically crumbs. Drafted Keon Coleman, even though he traded that one pick to give Xavier Worthy to the fucking Chiefs. Whatever. Signed Curtis Samuel, a whole bunch of little stuff, but they released Jordan Poyer, let a whole bunch of expensive money go, let go of Mitch Norse. Yeah, they didn't like drastically shake the table like I expected them to do. They trusted Josh Allen to still make the best of his situation, and he did. I wanted to give Brandon Bean his props there, and then this will be a pretty nasty one because you can credit a lot of this to coaching. But I did want to briefly shout out Howie Roseman for his offseason. Um,
Yeah, I'm sorry. That's a nasty one.
dra- drafted Quinion Mitchell and Coop DeJean, signed Zach Bond, Saquon Barkley, Bryce Huff, and CJ Gardner Johnson. The one bad move is he traded for Jahan Dotson for way too high of a draft pick. But he also traded Hassan Reddick.
Never beating the allegations, man.
He did trade away
Howie
his.
Roseman, sign or trade for a player I've never heard of. Do it one time, I dare you.
But I mean, ultimately, like he ended up getting that compensation back in the Hassan Reddick trade.
Good
So
trade,
I
yeah.
mean, he re-signed Jake Elliott and Brandon Graham for Brandon Graham is big for that defense in terms of like
Yeah.
the culture and whatnot. But ultimately, I think the Dotson trade and the Reddick trade ultimately kind of evens itself out, and then you take in the two main like great secondary guys that they drafted. I think this was a pretty good year for Howie Roseman, even though he is kind of funky.
All jokes aside, yeah, he had a good year. Like probably his best year since I guess since he traded for AJ Brown. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, last honorable mention is I mean, aside from being a homer, Joe Ortiz, the job he's done with the Chargers, because yeah, the hits they got in the draft, like
I didn't touch the Chargers too much because I figured you would give them enough credit as
yeah, of
is.
course. But similarly to Howie Roseman in Philly, like that is coaching and executive, but still he had to set up. You still got to put the guys in the building. But
Yeah.
all right, last official award from the Associated Press that they give out or
Oh,
vote for to be more
I had
accurate.
a ton of fun with this one.
But comeback player of the year. This one is a funny one.
So,
For
so
it's
can we
funny.
start?
This is a funny choice, but he's coming back from an injury, so I think will win. It,
J.K.
or should
Dobbins?
and oh, I was actually gonna say Joe Burrow because he's coming off a torn wrist ligament. The comeback player. Before we get any further, the comeback player of the year is always so confusing to me because it's like, is it a season-ending injury? Like, does it have to happen early in the
Yeah,
season? Like, I
that's
don't know,
also
but
that's kind of why I didn't include Joe Burrow because I was like that
but
injury's
like
more
he tore a
like
wrist ligament. You know what I mean? He's a quarterback. Like, I don't know.
so. Who I thought is probably gonna win is J.K. Dobbins because this has
Well, he
been
won't win now because he's on. He just went on IR, so
oh
he
is he
won't win now.
Yeah, I don't know if he comes back by the end of the year, then maybe they'll give it back to him. But all I remember is throughout all the games, I keep hearing comeback player of the year, comeback player of the year. Whenever I listen to the games, this is something that the media keeps bringing up, and I do think it makes a bunch of sense that the narrative
It's
does
just
favor
funny
him.
because J.K. Dobbins has been good. The Chargers' run game is not. It's
Yeah,
awful. It's like
well,
it's the 31st in success rate, I think, in the league. It's not a
yeah,
good run game.
they're much worse without him. I'll say that.
Yes, I will say.
Um,
I do have a handful of honorable mentions. Who I thought should have won before this past week, in which he was terrible, was Kirk Cousins. At his age, coming off an Achilles injury, like putting up a good-ish season. Honestly, personally, it was like, yeah, like I thought you would be really bad, which
but
this past
I,
week he was.
I'm gonna
But
I'm gonna keep it real with you. I went way cooler with the comeback player of the year award. I did not think about injuries at all.
I mean, honorable mentions, yeah, J.K. Dobbins was in there. Nick Chubb, like, was in there just because of the seriousness of his injury, but the production, obviously, understandably, has not been there. I don't think he's really in consideration. It's more of a very backhanded narrative thing. But I wrote down Bryce Young just because
Bro,
like
that's who I put should win the award.
yeah, I don't know,
Everyone was out on Bryce Young.
including us. Yeah,
It
well,
seemed like
everyone is out on Bryce Young.
Dave Canales was out on him when he benched him at the start of the year. So I'm still not certain about him, about a quarterback who can barely look over the offensive line, but his confidence is great. His arm looks fucking incredible. Yeah, it's still not perfect. His completion concerns me a little bit, but mostly this, I think this can go both to him and the receivers. I think you account for that, you'll get something a little more even. But there's some intangibles that can't go ignored, and I think staying true to the idea of coming back, I think it
Yeah,
goes to Bryce Young.
yeah.
That's ultimately how I operated. I thought the two choices for comeback of the year was between
It
J.K. Dobbins and Sam Darnold.
yes. Oh yeah, I didn't write him down, but Sam Darnold was a good one. If he had been like okay this year, I think Ricky Pearsall also would have been here because dude
So
got a whole ass shot.
the thing is, I still don't think it's out of the realm of possibility either. I still think they might give it to him. They're going to be like, oh, the courage he came back from getting shot in the
Did Brian
chest.
Robinson win comeback player of the year? I mean, he got shot. Like I know we're trying to make this sound funny, but like it's just like I don't want to harp on it like it's like it is sad, but like like I don't want to harp. It's like matter of fact, like the dude got shot and he continued to be an NFL level athlete, which is
Yeah,
insane.
I mean, if we're giving comeback player of the year to like people who were resurrected, like
It's
yeah,
like,
like they gave it to Damar Hamlin, I think getting shot should also put you in contention for
yeah,
this.
like yeah, honestly.
Ultimately, I made this a lot more fun for myself by just looking at players who were about to get like thrusted out of the league, basically, or like shafted onto the bench.
Oh my god, the quarterbacks colonizing every goddamn award.
Yeah, so I
But
put
no,
I
this
put
year,
Sam
yeah,
Donald, who it's entirely plausible. I want to say, especially when you look at like the bad Sam Darnold games, it's
yeah,
entirely plausible that the scheme and the fit do more wonders for him than anything. I mean, having the best receiver in football, having a great offensive coach, having guys like Hawkinson and Addison aside him, and Aaron
and a great
Jones.
offensive line. Yeah,
But I still don't know if anybody expected such a Linsanity run out of him, especially when he was basically anonymous in San Francisco. So I could
yeah.
see him pick up the award if J.K. Dobbins' injury doesn't like bring him back on the field for at least the last few games. Um,
Hmm.
the last one is really funny. He's not going to get it, but Mr. Unlimited, Russell Wilson, uh, he was. We thought he was done
It's
for.
true.
That Denver excursion was awful. Zero confidence. His arm looked like a noodle. But now he seems like the kind of guy that Pittsburgh might fuck around and re-sign. So he's
Yeah.
not perfect, but damn if he can't win you some football games.
It's funny how Russell Wilson has become an anti-stats guy. Not like him, but the perception of him
Yeah,
is like, yeah, if you look at the numbers, he's not good.
they kind
And
of they kind of
in the
feels
run of like like on some real like specific football nerd stuff. Like I still don't love how the Steelers offense operates like drive by drive through whole games, but like,
Yeah,
damn it, man, yeah, they score, they
I
score,
was
man.
I was gonna say that whole offense is filled with those kind of guys that are like, I don't really know if you're great, but
Russell
like,
Wilson to
when
George
you
Pickens
know,
is objectively the funniest connection in the league, like by far,
bro,
objectively, not even close.
I still can't get over that that post where there was like, yeah, he's got 99 spectacular catch and has 67 on route
63
running.
route running
Like, I mean, it's true. There's a whole bunch of guys that like probably aren't great, but they're all great for the Steelers.
for the Steelers.
It's weird.
Yeah,
And then I've
yeah,
got.
I'll be interested to see who wins this award.
You said you had a. You said you had an unsung hero for every single position. So
Oh yeah, well,
let me go ahead.
you,
Let me
you,
go ahead and run through mine. Let me go ahead and run
yeah.
through.
So that ends all of our talk about the AP NFL awards. But yeah, our gold stars, which yeah, I've got a shit ton of them. I cannot lie.
I'm gonna go ahead and do mine because they're pretty
Okay,
simple.
okay. Well, before we start, so yes, so just to recap, yeah. So our gold stars, or whatever you want to call them, unsung heroes, are guys. These are just guys who aren't going to win awards. They're not necessarily the best in their position. Well, like some of them are, but guys just who don't get as much attention as they should. Um, just for like clarity's sake, like guys I would have named but are still kind of well known offensively. Think of like Penei Sewell, plays tackle, he also plays in Detroit, or like Khalil Shakir is like one of my favorites. Buffalo, like underrated receiver. Defensively, think of a guy like Zach Bond, who's come alive in Philadelphia this year. And just so I had another defensive player like Grant Delpit in Cleveland, like guys like that, guys who don't get a lot of attention, but play really well on good teams, or maybe they're great on bad teams. But there's a lot of room here to work with. But yeah, let's start with. I guess I should ask you this before you start. Did you break this into offense and defense, or do you just have like?
I just wrote guys that I like fuck with. To be honest with you,
Okay, let's
I
start with
kept
let's start with offense. Let's start with offense.
okay. So I have one defensive guy, so we can save that for last.
Oh, beautiful.
Um,
Yeah.
I want to give a shout out to my white boy of the year. Uh, like the way that Teddy Long rode for Rodney Mack back on those Monday Night Raw games.
Rodney Mack. Oh my god.
I want to shout out Trey McBride. He's already about to surpass his yardage last year, which was
Last
825
year.
on 81 grabs. Right now, he's at 781 yards on 73 receptions. Surprisingly, doesn't have any touchdowns,
He has no
unfortunately.
touchdowns, right? Yeah, he didn't score this past week.
But he's exceptionally reliable for Kyler Murray and them, and reels in a bunch of just great yardage. Get 81 yards here, 78 there, 94 there. Like he's consistently great, and I think soon enough he'll be one of those premier tight ends in the league. At worst, he'll be like a Dalton Schultz, Dallas Goddard level of sort of reliability. Um, then moving on, I want to shout out somebody who's not going to get any like love at all, but he's having his best year. Baker Mayfield is
Hmm.
fantastic this year.
Yeah, he has been really good.
3,034 yards, 25 touchdowns, and 11 interceptions on 70% completion, which is nuts. Crazy to think 3 years ago he was on the outs of the league, like barely making it, was with the Panthers and the Rams. Now he's having his most efficient year, his best QBR, all while losing Chris Godwin and Mike Evans going in
And
and out
Mike
of the
Evans.
lineup. I'm not really sure where Tampa Bay's headed as an organization, but I really do think he's like franchise quarterback level.
Really weird wrinkle of the season is that not only Tampa Bay, but a Todd Bowles led Tampa Bay team is really good offensively and not good defensively. Like,
Right.
what world do we live in? Like, that's just fucking weird, man.
Like
That is weird.
especially since they lost Canales, who like I was a little worried about Tampa going into it because we thought that Canales was like the quarterback whisperer, and
He
we
was the
thought that
guy,
he was
yeah.
like the reason that that offense worked. But they slotted somebody else in, and that offense is still working pretty good. So I just I don't really know where they go from here, but I do think that Baker Mayfield should be like the guy you should roll with in Tampa Bay. Um, and then the last ones I wanted to shout out two receivers that I think are great, but they're like on the lower end of the totem pole. Shout out Cedric Tillman on the Browns. He's really filled in for Amari Cooper, and ever since Deshaun Watson went down, Winston, yeah, Jameis Winston is like the perfect sort of quarterback for him, where he throws up a whole bunch of bullshit, but he has great eyes on the ball and even better hands.
Yeah.
So there's that, and then we mentioned Kirk Cousins earlier. I want to mention the Darnell Mooney hype.
Darnell Mooney.
He's zeroing in on 1,000-yard season if he keeps it up. Right now, he's at 731 yards. He's great in jump ball situations, which Kirk Cousins throws a whole lot
A
of.
whole lot of them.
I often had questions on if he was quietly better than Drake London this year because they have basically the same stat line. Their numbers aren't that far off, but maybe that's just an indictment on Kirk Cousins. All I know is that Darnell Mooney
True.
is still a baller.
All right, well, that makes my shit sound real nerdy, but they're not like it's not like I pick total random people. I'll try to keep this like not super rambly. I'll start with I've got 8 guys just on offense for the record, but I'll start easy with the receivers. Jaden Reed in Green Bay, who I've shouted out a few times, especially early in the season. I think he's very crucial to their early season success. But yeah, Jaden Reed in Baltimore, Rashad Bateman, who we've kind of unintentionally talked shit about, just by talking about the lack of talent in this Baltimore skill group. But I think he's earned his money. I think he's earned the right to stay there because he's been really great. WR2, high review him 2, 3. God, if they could just get another guy and another big guy to play WR1, because yeah, I think Bateman's been really great. But of the 3, I want to talk more about Denver's rookie out of nowhere, Devon Vele. He's
Okay.
got 32 catches, 361 yards, and a touchdown. I think he was a 5th round, a 6th round pick, I forget. But yeah, Sean Payton, man, you have worked magic. And Vele has been very fun. His not resurgence, but him becoming or getting more snaps in this offense has coincided with Bo Nix getting better the past since like what would that have been, week 6? No, not weeks, like week 7 or 8. Bo Nix is distributing the ball like a lot better, and Vele has become a very big target for him. I'm a little bit of a phony here. I only have 1 running back, but
I thought
you
the
know,
running back truther would have a whole bunch of fucking running backs.
I had to pick the guy who is, we don't get the Bryce Young resurgence without Chuba Hubbard, who has been like, for my money, he's kind of
Pretty
the
good.
most.
He's had some really rough fucking games, but
He's kind of the most important running back in like the bottom half of the league. I think, if that makes sense.
I
He's
guess
got 9.
I give that to Tyrone Tracy myself, but I'm not mad at it.
He's got 919 yards on 189 carries, 7 touchdowns. He's also caught 31 passes for 126 yards and a touchdown. He has one of the funniest splits I've discovered this season. When he runs inside the tackles, he's only got 391 yards, but he has 4 touchdowns. Collectively, he's got negative 4.9 EPA. When they run him outside the tackles, he's got 528 yards, 3 touchdowns, and positive 3.7 EPA. Carolina, find a guy who weighs 230 pounds and make that guy run inside the tackles, because this guy, let Chuba Hubbard run, bro. He's like a horse. Let him run free, brother.
Yeah, and
But he's been very fun to watch when this Panthers offense has been very good. Tight ends, I've actually got 2. Sticking with Tampa Bay, Cade Otton
that
is
boy is
that
nice.
boy nice, man. That boy nice. Tampa Bay's got real white boy culture down there. We had Cameron Brate, and we passed it down to Cade Otton.
I
He's
did,
got
I did learn in the Baker Mayfield discovery because I only knew he went to Oklahoma, but considering I'm in Austin, I didn't know that he went to the high school that is like 25 minutes away from me.
That's a country bumpkin, man. Yeah,
Really,
he's got career highs in everything. 54 catches, 506 yards, and 4 touchdowns. Touchdowns ties his career high. But yeah, very very quiet, great year. On a team that relies on Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. 506 yards from a tight end that no one knows is that's not light work.
I mean,
Tight end that more. Oh,
Mike Evans is from Galveston. The only outsider is
I
Chris Godwin because he's from Delaware.
mean, Delaware, like
Yeah, which whatever.
spawned. This is like a random Sims character who just spawned out of nowhere.
Yeah, Bucky Irving. I would be legitimately shocked if Bucky Irving isn't from like fucking Mississippi or some shit.
I had one more tight end, and it's Miami's own Jonnu Smith, who I feel like Jonnu Smith is like the most underrated tight end in the league. Like he's been getting passed around the league for like 3 years now, and teams do not want to hold on to him for whatever reason. But he's got 58 catches for 648 yards. That's a career high. He's got 4 touchdowns. Of all receivers with at least 50 targets, he's 11th in EPA per target. The 10 players above him, look, this is a crazy list. It's Terry McLaurin, Mark Andrews, A.J. Brown, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jalen Waddle, Rashad Bateman, Jaden Reed, Lad McConkey, Juwan Jennings, Chris Godwin. Those are the only guys above Jonnu Smith. He's above, again, this is an EPA per target. T. Higgins, Nico Collins, Puka Nacua, Cole Kmet, Jameson Williams, Khalil Shakir. Like, show some love for the tight ends, man. He's been really great. I think he's been like not the most important player in Miami, but like without him, that offense really doesn't operate as efficiently because when Tua's not getting the ball to Hill or Waddle, which is
Yeah.
they've both been up and down this year.
Mm-hmm.
It's Smith and Achane. Yeah,
Well, my dad hates Devin Achane.
which I understand. No offense to Devon Achane.
I mean, I watched that last game and I was like, wow, does he know how to run the football or what?
Devon Achane is the human embodiment of a slot machine.
Yeah.
Exactly in the way that a slot machine works is that you keep pulling and you're not winning 99 times, but that 100th time, man, ooh, doesn't it feel good when you see those sevens on the board? That
My
feels good.
my pops has been lamenting the Derrick Henry signing to the Ravens all year because he was like, bro, imagine if we had Derrick Henry and Tyreek Smith. I was like, Pops, I don't know if they could afford all that, but I hear you.
And then I got 2 more players on the offensive side of the ball. I went with offensive linemen. But
Okay.
I almost got real nasty, not real nasty, but like I was really digging deep. But I settled on 2 guys on 2 good teams who I just think deserve some more praise. The first is Green Bay right tackle Zach Tom, who, for my money, I think has been the best right tackle in the league. He's played 767 snaps. He's only allowed 1 sack and 15 pressures. He's 6th in PFF pass blocking grade. Like, yeah, I don't know this Green Bay team. Maybe it's because he plays in Green Bay. Like this is, it's one of those things we kind of come to expect from them. But very
That's
quietly, Robert Bakhtiari he left this team. He was very injured the past 2-3 seasons that he was in Green Bay, and so there's a lot of mild controversy over who to replace him. Yeah, Zach Thomas stepped in like real easily. I think he's been just as good as Bakhtiari was.
That's kind of how we feel about most of the Packers players, though. No, like to be honest, like I couldn't pick any of the Packers wide receivers out of a fucking lineup, let alone one of the offensive linemen. You know?
Isn't it crazy that they drafted all those guys? Watson, Dobbs, Wicks, and Reed. Like that's insane. What the hell?
And
All
again,
of them,
and
and
again,
all of them are day 2 picks. Like that's crazy.
it probably explains why we don't know what they look like.
And the other lineman I wanted to mention, who is the best center in the league this season, not named Creed Humphrey. It's Baltimore center Tyler Linderbaum.
Yep.
778 snaps, no sacks allowed, 8 pressures allowed. That's tied for the second least. The first is Creed Humphrey. Yeah, I will say Linderbaum, his run game blocking has been a little bit up and down, but as a pass blocker, yeah, he's right up there with
Yeah, I
Humphrey.
mean, if one thing you know about the Lamar Jackson thing, usually he's getting attacked from the edges. It's
From the
never
edges.
like
Mm-hmm.
they're never splitting the interior, and I think he does a good job of that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's everyone we got on offense. You said you only had one guy on defense.
Yeah,
I'll let you do.
I was gonna shout out. You mentioned him earlier. I want to shout out Brian Branch, somebody that I was very high
Mm.
on coming into the 2023 draft. I was very vocal about it to you, so it was very satisfying to see him land in Detroit. And this year, aside Terrion Arnold, Kirby Joseph, Carlton Davis, he's really sunk into his role, and I think he's probably my favorite out of that secondary. He's improved a lot as a tackler. Who he was kind of rough. Very jumpy. Was very inclined to draw penalties. Just, I mean, very easy rookie stuff, and he's tightened up a lot of that stuff. I predicted that Carlton Davis would be a massive help to that young group, and Branch, I think, has been the biggest benefactor in terms of how they overhauled that secondary.
I've got 8 defensive players, same as they did on offense. Okay, I'll start. I'll start with inside linebacker. First shout out, we're gonna go old man here. We're gonna go to Washington. We're gonna shout out Bobby Wagner, who was, when they signed Bobby Wagner, I definitely thought this was real like old Yeller stuff. Like, and I love Bobby Wagner, but it really felt like, really, like, this is the best you could do. 104 tackles, 2 sacks, 16 pressures. That's his highest pressure rate since 2018. Yeah, and he's playing 98% of the snaps. He's played 98% of the snaps every year of his career, or since 2018 at least, except 2021. Um, yeah, this team needed a veteran presence, and I mean, I guess shame on me, because who better than Bobby Wagner?
Well, it doesn't help that like places like PFF gas him to like high end in terms of the linebacker rooms. Like I don't know if he's
Yeah,
the best linebacker like they always say he is, but I've always thought he's been pretty solid, if not teetering on very good.
and the other linebacker I had was out in Miami, a former Seahawk, but Jordan Brooks. Yeah, in his first year away from Seattle, career high, playing 99.6% of snaps. He'd never played more than, I think, like 81. I forget. I should have written this down. But I mean, yeah, 104 tackles, a sack at 17 pressures. That's a 29.3% pressure rate. But also, this doesn't show up in the numbers, but he's really shined as a coverage linebacker, as like a hook curl drop zone defender. He's been really crucial to this Miami defense. I'd say he's been Miami's second best defender outside of course, Javon Holland. But ironically, the Seattle defense would have been much even more excellent if they had both Ernest Jones and Jordan Brooks. But so be it. It's fine.
I mean, selfishly, I'm not mad at it because I'm seeing shout out to Lakeland's own Tyrese Knight being
Tyrese
able.
Knight, yeah, he's nice too.
He's nice, and like I say this as somebody who like never sees good guys come out of Lakeland like that. The last one that I remember, I think he was an offensive or defensive tackle, but he ended up going to Jim Harbaugh's Michigan, and I don't think he ever ended up going to the league. But he was really good coming out of Lakeland. Shout out to Lake Gibson High, man.
So yeah, those are my two linebackers. We'll move to the D line, or technically D line. I've got some outside linebackers here. But go back to Washington. Actually, I'm going to shout out a pair of guys, Durant Armstrong and Dante Fowler Jr., who've been
Mm,
really excellent. Following over Dan Quinn, from all three of them going from Dallas to Washington. Armstrong's got 26 pressures. He's got the eighth best pressure rate in the league. Fowler's got 25 pressures. He's got the 12th best pressure rate in the league. The Commanders are one of 3 teams with multiple qualified players. I think this is at least 125 passer snaps. One of only 3 teams with multiple players with a pressure rate over 16%. The other two are the Texans and the Rams. Like, that's pretty good company to be in this year, man, defensively. That's
yeah,
pretty good
I guess briefly I could shout out Newton, and before he went down, Deron Payne. Those were really
company.
great guys on that Washington line.
I think we've made this joke before. The Washington D line, before they drafted Jazan Newton, Jonathan Allen and Deron Payne are the most, like, why does nobody know who these guys are? Literally, nobody knows who these guys are. But there's like two of the top, like, at least 15 10-ish defensive tackles in the league.
And they're on the same squad. That
And
was the
they're the
one
same team.
that was one
Hilarious.
thing that I wasn't that worried about heading into it, especially when they brought in Dan Quinn. I was like, okay, they let go of like Montez Sweat, who is having a great year in Chicago. Another brief shout out. But they were able to fill in that gap pretty easily, and yeah,
It's funny how they went from unmotivated Montez Sweat and Chase Young, and now they've got Armstrong and Fowler. It's like the fucking Expendables or something.
I think
Right.
Fowler followed Dan Quinn to Washington. I think
Well,
so.
yeah,
I
no,
think
they
that
were
makes
all
sense.
three of them were in Dallas last year.
Yeah, and I think Fowler was maybe I'm tripping, but I swear I remember Fowler being in Atlanta too.
Yeah, he was in for a year or two. I forget when, but that was also semi recently. Um, Speaking of defensive tackles, this guy came up by name, but shout him out here. Detroit D tackle Alim McNeil. Like, really, he's not going to get the flowers he deserves. Also, because they just signed DJ Reader, who is better. He is fantastic, but Alim McNeil is having a career year. Percentage. He's playing 528 snaps. The 73% of snaps, that's a career high. He's got 23 tackles, 20 stops, 3.5 sacks, and 38 pressures. He's got career high in pressure rate, time to sack, time to pressure, and get off. Like, he's kind of hitting a physical peak, and like, I don't know, this Detroit locker room, man, like shit, dude.
It really, because they got hurt like a lot in that last Bears game, so I am a little worried. That's a topic for another week maybe, but I am worried about Detroit heading into the postseason.
And then yeah, getting off the line, quite literally. We got two outside linebackers. I'll go to Pittsburgh here. I'll shout out Nick Herbig, who I think I've mentioned once or twice on this pod. But going from a guy who didn't start any games, he played less than 20% of snaps in 2023. Now he's playing 59%. He's got 4.5 sacks and 31 pressures. Like, and again, this Pittsburgh defense is kind of funny. You can kind of just choose guys outside of TJ Watt, because obviously they've got him, and outside of him, there's Alex Highsmith. On the line, you still got Larry Ogunjobi and Cam Hayward. But I just want to shout him out, going from a real outside guy to being a guy who they look better when he's on the field. And then I got one more old man on here. He plays in Baltimore. His name is Kyle Van Noy, who is
Hmm.
I, I swear Kyle Van Noy's like 40. Maybe not 40. He's kind of like Calais Campbell. Like, oh, he's still playing. Like, damn, he's still
Yeah,
going. Like,
it feels like they've always sort of been there.
but yeah, he's he was a rotation guy. He only started 3 games in 2023, but he had 9 sacks and 46 pressures. This year, start with 10 starts so far. He's got 8 sacks and 36 pressures. Yeah, he's come up really big for this Baltimore defense that, as we know, has been really up and down. But
33 years old.
he's only 33. Yeah, when did he break into the league? How old was he? He played at least 6 years with the Pats, right? Something like 5 or 6.
I can
But
check that in the meantime.
all right. Well, yeah, Kyle Van Noy. Shout out Kyle Van Noy.
So
Shout out to your 1 year with the Chargers.
so he started in Detroit from 2014 to 2016. Went
2014
Yeah, went to the Patriots in 2016, and then went to the Dolphins in 2020.
Dolphins,
Went to the Chargers 1 year in
Chargers.
2022, and now he's in the Ravens.
Man, what a guy. All right, and then yeah, wanted to end with two corners that I've mentioned, but still got to mention them because they have been fantastic. Buffalo corner Christian Benford. This fucking guy, dude. This is a dog right here. He's played 96.7% of snaps. He's allowed 209 yards on 26 catches. He's got 1 interception. He's allowing a 76.8% passer rating. He's only got 4.4 yards per target. That's the fewest among all outside corners in the league. And he's been targeted the sixth lowest rate on all of his coverage snaps. Yeah, this Buffalo defense is not nearly as good. This is kind of like the Pat Surtain thing to him. This is like Walmart Pat Surtain, but like without Christian Bedford, this Buffalo defense is not nearly as good at every level.
Yeah,
But last one, I should have started with him, but I wanted to end at home with the Chargers and shout out Cam Hart, who Notre Dame's own fifth round pick, like
I think
fifth
that
round pick.
I
Well,
think that's the reason why I didn't like him initially because I was like, ew, Notre
from
Dame.
Notre Dame. Kyle Hamilton and Cam Hart, man. Yeah, as a fifth round pick, playing 77% of possible snaps, 29 tackles, 11 stops. He's allowed 204 yards on 22 catches. And yeah, he's a great open field tackler, which this Chargers team under Brandon Staley was notoriously bad at. And even without him in that Baltimore game that they lost, the outside tackling was noticeably worse. Um, yeah, Cam Hart, he makes my heart sing. I love this kid. Give him $50 million. I don't even care. Love him. And yeah, that is all the guys I got for my defensive gold stars.
Didn't
I,
have any special teams, bro.
that's for
I
that's for
mean, I
next week. What are you
shouted out
talking about?
I shouted out Jake Bates earlier, so I mean, I guess that counts for something.
Yeah, we shouted out Jake Bates. No, special teams is next week. Trust me, I got you. We're gonna have punters by airtime. We're gonna have gunners by miles per hour. We're we're gonna have protectors by blocking grade.
The only time that we've ever seriously talked about special teams was the Titans
That's
for
not true.
Big One.
I shouted out J.K. Scott one time. I think
But like the
one.
whole special
Okay,
teams, like that Titans special teams is like abysmal. That's something that you're not supposed to think about, and then you look at it and you're like, holy shit, they're really that bad.
shout out to the Tennessee Titans and San Francisco 49ers special teams. Why are you guys that bad?
Bro, the 49ers
Why are
was
you guys that bad?
rough. The 49ers were rough last night, bro. Oh my
Oh man.
god.
Oh, dear. I know they were in the snow, but oh dearie me. That was real.
James
That
Cook
was real. Like
them so bad. I watched that most of that game and I was legitimately grossed out a little bit.
it was real. Like Looney Tunes. Like whoop 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 whoop. Oh man. But yeah, that is everything we have for end of the season awards for the 2024 NFL regular season and our gold stars, people who will live in our heart for this season. Man, it's funny we didn't talk about the games this week, but I mean, I I will just say this is probably the most normal in its own way normal week of the season so far. Like there were some gross games, don't get me wrong, but like in terms of the results,
I think the real gross games are coming next week, which my 2 minute warning pick uh, is going to be the nastiest game out of the pack. I want to see how
oh,
different the Bears look with no Eberflus, and I want to see if the 49ers can win a game after that Bills game.
yeah, the coach firing the 1 to 3 week honeymoon. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's Sunday.
could it work? They could use the win. Either of these teams really use
Both
it,
teams
really.
could use this
But
win really.
The 49ers really can't afford to lose to the Bears with no head
Yeah.
coach.
Yeah, next week is weird. We got Packers Lions is Thursday night football, which is the Lions should win that game, but division game.
That's the only reason I didn't bring that up because we'd already like marked that as one. We've already seen that game, but honestly, kind of expect the Packers to win that.
Hmm.
Lots of injuries in Detroit, especially coming off of that Bears Thanksgiving game.
Yeah,
And I think they were bound to split the difference. I think the Packers can adjust for the things that they did wrong against the Lions.
playing 2 Thursday nights in a row is crazy. By the way,
That is mad crazy. You
it's
should be
really
like,
funny.
man, I played Thanksgiving. Hopefully, I can get these extra days off to rest. Nope, we're chucking you back on Thursday.
I honestly cannot pick one, and even with my bias aside, Sunday night football, Chiefs Chargers. Their first matchup earlier in the season was real boring one. Chargers go starting that game up 10-0 and then just letting up 17 unanswered, one of which was an Xavier Worthy Madden touchdown, literally. And so, with the Chiefs being how the Chiefs have really just they've this season they've really Dan Campbelled it. They've had to bite and claw and just do everything possible other than play good football to get to this point, and yet here they are with only one loss.
It's weird because the Lions are like bashing the skulls of all these NFL teams,
Yeah,
blowing them
like
out,
I
and
don't mean that in
the
a
Chiefs doing the opposite. Like, actually, we're
I
good.
don't necessarily mean that in a complimentary or derogatory way. Well, I guess somewhat derogatory. Just really like, yeah, the Chiefs have really had to claw every single game every week, but they're one loss.
My
And then
heart,
the Chargers, yeah, this game should be more exciting. With J.K. Dobbins being out, and with Lad McConkey, who's played through injury for at least 3 or 4 weeks now, and then this defense who has really sorely missed Cam Hart and Denzel Perryman the past 2 weeks. Um, we'll see how it goes.
I'm a little worried. I'm a little worried, man.
Just because I named him there. Shout out Denzel Perryman too. Bring back linebackers who hit motherfuckers in the mouth. That's
And
football, brother.
I also hope this next Cardinals Seahawks game is any good. The Cardinals are like clawing out of these really rough games. Like they had a bad one against Seattle 2 weeks ago. They barely lost against the Vikings, which is another brutal defense. Now they got to go. I think they're gonna go back home.
They're
So
back in Arizona, but
yeah,
against a Seattle defense that has looked very good
and
since the deadline.
James Conner has looked really rough these last few games. I don't know if he has an injury that I'm not aware of, or if it's just like the general wear and tear of battering through broken tackles all year. I don't know.
Yeah, that is it for this post Thanksgiving episode. I had a lot of fun. Hopefully, you guys had a lot of fun as well. Um, we I'm not going to promise anything. I don't know. I guess in my whispering voice, we will see what happens with the games this weekend. We may or may not get another themed episode next week. But I
Well,
mean, hopefully,
I will also be in new territory, so
oh
we'll see
yes,
how that goes as
we
well.
may also get a special episode of the Snap Count. We there things are in motion, wheels are being turned.
It's
We'll
gonna
see.
be set up like that one meme of those three white kids talking, and
Three white
it's
kids.
gonna, it's gonna be built like that.
All right, but yeah, that was it for us this week. Um, Wherever, whenever you were listening, good morning, good afternoon, or good night. Thank you guys so much.